Well, good morning, everyone, and a very special welcome to Georgetown to all of the guests who are with us. Last April, the militant group Boko Haram, in an attack that shocked the world, stormed the Chibok Secondary School in Nigeria and kidnapped about 300 schoolgirls. These months later, the girls remain in captivity. There have been scattered reports about forced marriages, torture, threats to auction them into slavery. Around the world, girls who want to go to school from Afghanistan to Iraq and beyond are risking their lives to get an education. Radical extremists who believe that girls, especially, should not go to school continue these attacks. In fact, Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. And you will remember that Malala barely survived the attack on her. Georgetown's president, DeGioia, wanted this university to come together to respond in ways large and small to address this terrible challenge. And this morning, we are fortunate to have two distinguished leaders to speak to us, one from the United States and our guest, the minister from Nigeria. And we just came out of a meeting with her and some of the members of the business and philanthropic community who are also in the audience with us. President DeGioia will take the stage shortly. But first we will start with the administrator from USAID. And if you'd like to join our conversation on social media, please use hashtag #SecureGirlsEd. It is now my personal pleasure to welcome back to Georgetown my former colleague and the administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, Dr. Raj Shah. He's just so popular here because of all the development experts. This has been such a hectic week in New York with the opening of the UN General Assembly and the Clinton Global Initiative. Dr. Shah and Minister Ngozi have been on a marathon and come directly from there to be with us this morning, and we're so grateful to both of them. Dr. Shah, who assumed his position in late 2009, manages the extensive U.S. development portfolio around the world. And prior to heading up USAID, he was an undersecretary at the Department of Agriculture, and before that, served 7 years with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan and holds an MD from the University of Pennsylvania and a master's from Wharton. So please welcome him now, Dr. Shah. We're happy to have you back.
Hello and good morning. Thank you so much, Melanne, for your extraordinary leadership. And I know you said we are former colleagues. It certainly feels like we are still colleagues as we work on the same sets of issues and try to do our best. But our country was very well served with Melanne in the role of ambassador for women and girls around the world. And now her successor, Kathy Russell, is also doing a great job in what is an extraordinarily important role. I also want to say I'm honored to be here with Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She is a good friend and a respected leader around the world. I think we all take great comfort in knowing that Africa's largest and most dynamic economy is in her hands, and we all follow her leadership regularly. So we're all fortunate today to be able to hear from her, especially on this important subject. I'd like to note that Jack DeGioia is, of course, well known to all of you as the president of this great institution. I have been so impressed by his specific commitments to development. And Jack, I know years ago you let us commandeer half of the campus to run conferences, and you have since taken great leaders from us like Steve Radelet. And we know we come here often to learn from your students who are leading thinkers, even at a young age in this field, and we're honored that you're here today. Thank you for having me. And I'd like to note that this topic we're speaking about today feels very much like it's appropriate as a legacy and relevant to the leadership of our friend Carol Lancaster, for whose thoughts and prayers we are keeping her in our mind. As I go forward here, I just want to introduce Christy Vilsack. Christy, you want to put your hand up? Christy is our Global Education Coordinator and works with an outstanding team of USAID colleagues here and around the world. And, you know, I think we all feel, Christy's a former teacher, I'm a parent, I know many of you are, we've all been students, so we all feel a personal connection to the subject at hand. And in fact, this morning, for the first time all week, I was able to see my daughter run off to school with her backpack on. She's a kindergartner and excited to take the bus. And you know, every day is cheerful and exciting, and every day I know that she will be safe on her way to school. She will be supported and nurtured in school. She'll have the chance to learn. She'll come home and engage with classmates and play, and that is our experience of what education is and should be. And so every day it is extraordinarily heartbreaking to know that 62 million kids, many girls, do not have that same experience or that same opportunity. In Nigeria, we know a full third of children, as many as 10 million kids, are out of school. We know this is Africa's largest, most dynamic, most important, and one of the fastest growing economies in the entire world, and yet too many girls are simply not able to get access to a basic, safe education. Around the world, girls are not in school because it is too dangerous, too expensive. Folks aren't giving girls a chance to build a better life for themselves and their community. And this is an audience that understands how important girls' education is. But I think it is important to recognize that even today, despite all the tremendous progress over the past 15 years at expanding access to education, safe education, high-quality education, despite all that progress, a young girl born in South Sudan or certain parts of northern Nigeria are often more likely to be sold as a child bride or die in childbirth than they are to complete a secondary education. And the common threat here, I think, is felt across all people who watch and care about these issues. In April, when more than 200 of the Chibok schoolgirls were kidnapped from their school, it appropriately created a global awareness of the challenges we all face together on behalf of these schoolgirls. I know there is no other leader around the world who has put in so much personal time, energy, and thoughtfulness as Minister Ngozi to recover these girls and to ensure that other girls have opportunities for safety and to build their own futures through an education. You know, sitting in this room, that we face challenges with school safety right here in this country. And you remember how tragic and poignant it was after the Sandy Hook shootings, when it felt like something was taken away from each of us because of what happened in that small, closely knit community not far from here. It was after that moment that President Obama said, and I quote, "This is our first task, caring for our children. It's our first job. If we don't get that right, we don't get anything right." And I'd like to take a moment just to share with you a video that we helped produce with the support of many others that shares a common spirit after the Chibok schoolgirl abductions.
In Nigeria, hundreds of young girls were kidnapped as they prepared for their final exams at boarding school.
In Pakistan, a girl was shot for insisting she and her friends have the right to learn. In Haiti, a young girl who couldn't afford to go to school showed up anyway. Showed up every day until they let her stay.
A threat to girls' education anywhere is a threat to progress everywhere.
All girls should have the freedom to learn.
It's time to unlock their potential.
It's time to let them learn.
Children born to educated mothers are twice as likely to survive past the age of 5.
One more year of education increases a woman's income by up to 25%.
A girl who has a basic education is 3 times less likely to contract HIV.
An educated girl is a healthier girl. A girl who will care for her children, who will earn more income.
Who will reinvest that income into her family, her community, and her country.
And yet, around the world, there are 62 million girls who are not in school.
There are millions more fighting to stay there.
You can make a difference.
You
can make a difference.
Help let girls learn.
Act now and you will see the impact. Because the world is much smaller than you think.
Because a girl with a book,
And a girl with a microscope,
And a girl with a hard hat.
And a girl with a gavel are the leaders and peacemakers of tomorrow.
Let girls learn.
let girls learn. Make the courage of so many girls around the world count.
Make it contagious.
Speak up, reach out, share your concern, tweet it, post it.
Double down on your own education.
Start a movement.
Start here.
Start here.
Start here.
Start here.
Start here.
So starting, yep. So starting here really does mean accelerating the actions we take to live up to the common aspiration we have for girls to have access to safe, effective, high-quality education. Starting here means in Nigeria, we're greatly expanding our investments, our partnership with the government and with civil society to achieve this result. It means in Jordan and Lebanon, where Syrian school kids who have been displaced from their own country by the millions and often are not in school, it means we make extra investments to help them gain access to an education. And it means in Pakistan, even as we continue to invest in large-scale educational programs that are helping 3 million kids go to school, we focus on the needs of girls and the efforts to keep them safe and protected so they can trust in their own futures. Access to safe education is so important that we have made it a pillar of our education strategy. Through an initiative called Room to Learn, we're intensifying our efforts to reach 3 million additional children in 6 fragile countries, including Haiti, northern Nigeria, Afghanistan, a number of other settings where endemic poverty and conflict conspire to rob these children of their future. In each of these countries, we're working closely with ministries of finance and education to understand their own perspective on the challenges facing their communities and their schoolgirls, and their own priorities for accelerating progress. In the DRC, for example, the dialogue with our partners led us to understand that they believe the #1 challenge remains existing school fees, which is keeping, in particular, girls out of school. As a result, we've tailored our support to allow for those fees to be eliminated and for more girls to go to safe and effective schools. In Nigeria, we've responded to the call to action that we all share by announcing nearly $150 million specifically for helping more kids go to school, improving the quality of reading instruction and learning in as many schools as we can reach, and including a very specific investment in the Safe Schools initiative that I know you will hear about from Minister Ngozi. The truth is, it is our local partners and our local leaders that understand how to best provide safe access. They understand the nuance and the challenges they face in confronting extremist terrorist threats, which are what we are confronting in northern Nigeria in Boko Haram. And they understand the best ways to alleviate that. And that's why we're offering that extraordinary support. At the same time, it's our responsibility to ensure those large-scale investments deliver real results. So we set targets and we measure outcomes. Part of the investment in northern Nigeria will help 500,000 kids who are not in school go to school. Within that, we have a target of ensuring that at least half of them, 250,000, are in fact young girls. It will be our collective responsibility, working with the federal ministry, governors, and local organizations, to measure and report on those outcomes and to ensure we're providing access in the context of safety and protection for those 250,000 young girls. Now, lest you think that this is too difficult or that progress is too challenging, even in the context of extremist threat, it is important to recognize that we are making real progress. We recently conducted standardized testing in Sokoto and Bauchi states in northern Nigeria specifically, and discovered that more than 90% of the kids in second grade were not able to read a sentence. As a result, we're tailoring the investment to help improve teacher training in a coordinated way to ensure that early grade reading assessments are testing learning outcomes. And we know from our work in many countries around the world that we can see rapid improvement if we target, measure, and report on actual learning outcomes. In the context of northern Nigeria, much of our investment will focus on the quality of education and on the outreach to religious and civic leaders to make sure that girls have the same opportunities to learn as boys, and that the local cultural environment supports and prioritizes getting girls to experience those opportunities. It sounds tough, but we've seen so much progress in so many places. Over the last decade, in Afghanistan alone, we have 8 million kids in school. More than 3.5 million of them are girls. Most are now getting tested at a second grade level, and we've seen steadily how learning attainment has improved as society has made that investment, measured its effectiveness, and stayed committed to it through some difficult budget environments. In just one instance, we've seen that we've been able to help specific communities in Afghanistan maintain their commitment to schooling. And so today I'm proud to announce a significant new investment in that context of $54 million to establish at least 1,000 community-based schools to educate Afghan girls across 10 provinces and to empower a new generation of educated, talented, smart Afghan women to lead their nation's future. It's particularly important we make these investments and we talk about them right now because, as you know, Afghanistan now has a new government, and a government that will be faced with some very difficult choices about which of the gains of the last decade to continue to invest in, prioritize, and sustain. And it is our belief that the single most important one to sustain is the progress on behalf of girls getting an education. So from Nigeria to South Sudan, Yemen to Pakistan, we will continue to prioritize getting girls in school. The United States will continue to be the world's major funder of global education, particularly focused on girls and primary school. And we will continue to try to live up to the statement that President Obama made, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, although the days are all a blur at this point. He said in his speech at the UN, "We choose hope over fear. We choose to work for the world as it should be and as our children deserve it." He made that comment in the context of, as you know, a major new effort against extremism in the Middle East and around the world. He made it in the context of a reaffirmation that the United States will help lead the world in setting a new set of Millennium Development Goals after this current period expire, and try to be a strong voice for the basic principle that everyone should have a basic opportunity in life, including universal access to safe education for boys and girls. And he made it in the context of a reality where sometimes people look around the world and ask whether America still has the capacity to lead on security, on human rights, on the basic effort to end extreme poverty. And I think it's a great testament to President Obama's leadership, to Congress on a bipartisan basis, that over the last years, we've actually seen our investments in development, in health, in protecting those who live in the most fragile of environments go up, not down, be more effective, not less effective, and be more broadly gauged to bring more than 1,200 new local partners into the mix to work with us, bring more than 100 large-scale international companies to make commitments alongside us, and be tailored in the context of a new model of partnership where we listen and learn from local leaders like Ngozi and others. So we're doing the right things in the right way wherever we choose to make this kind of work move forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Shah, for those remarks and for being with us this morning. It is always a pleasure to welcome you back to campus and to hear your perspective on issues of such serious concern to us all, ensuring that girls across the world have a safe and reliable access to education. USAID has been a leader at the forefront of creating wider opportunities for women around the world and enabling them to play ever more significant roles in building more peaceful societies. The far-reaching efforts in which USAID is engaged through the Let Girls Learn initiative have been critical to promote and to protect educational opportunities for young girls around the world. So again, thank you very much for being here today. So I wish to take a moment to thank Her Excellency, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Nigeria's Minister for Finance, who will share remarks in just a few moments. Minister Ngozi, it is an honor to have you here with us at Georgetown, and I look forward to formally introducing you in just a moment. I also wish to express my appreciation to Ambassador Melanne Verveer and the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security for convening today's important conversation. The work of the Institute in advancing the role of women in building peaceful societies reflects Georgetown's most important commitments and our deepest held values. These values are guided by a particular tradition which calls us to seek justice, to be agents of change, to advance the work of the common good. And we hope that our conversations today will inspire our students as global citizens to bring our tradition to bear on seeking solutions to today's most pressing challenges. So now it is my great privilege to say a few words about our distinguished guest, Minister Ngozi. For us, always, it is a great honor to welcome you to Georgetown. We're deeply grateful to hear your perspective this morning as a tireless advocate in advancing the status of women in Nigeria and across the world through educational and economic opportunities. Minister Ngozi is a distinguished economist who embodies the very ideals that we are discussing today, the extraordinary potential that can be unlocked when a young girl's right to education is respected. Minister Ngozi attended Harvard University, graduating cum laude in 1977, and then pursued a PhD in regional economic development at MIT, graduating in 1981. She's gone on to serve her country and our global community with distinction, serving as a director of the World Bank, as Nigeria's finance minister, and then briefly as foreign affairs minister, the first woman to hold either position. She then returned to the World Bank to serve as managing director before being named Nigeria's Minister of Finance and coordinating minister for the economy, a position she's held since 2011. During her 2 terms as Minister of Finance, Minister Ngozi has increased transparency in the country's finances and has led economic reforms that have benefited the entire African continent. She's been an outstanding leader in combating corruption and driving the largest economy in Africa. Minister Ngozi has also been an outspoken advocate for women's participation in the economy, stating in a May 2014 article in The Guardian, just weeks after the tragic kidnapping of Nigerian schoolgirls by the terrorist group Boko Haram, that, quote, educating our young girls is the foundation for Nigeria's growth and development. So, Minister Ngozi, I wish to express on behalf of all of us here at Georgetown our deepest appreciation for your presence today, and I wish to invite you now to address our community and our guests.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Good morning. President DeGioia, Ambassador Verveer, my great friend Melanne, whom I've known for so long, Dr. Shah, the Nigerian ambassador to the US who is ably represented here, and so many friends in the audience, students, faculty. I want to thank you for taking the time to be here this morning to discuss a very important topic. Before I go into the topic of girls' education and safety and access to safe schools, I just want to say a word about Nigeria because many of you may not know, or perhaps what you read and hear gives you some impression about the country, and this is the opportunity to at least set a context for what we're going to talk about. Nigeria is Africa's largest country with 170 million people. And until a few months ago, it was the second largest economy on the continent. But after a rebasing, recalibration exercise that we conducted for the economy, which we had not done for 24 years, Nigeria has become the continent's largest economy also, with a GDP of $510 billion. South Africa is next with about 374, and then Egypt. It's a very dynamic country and a very dynamic economy, with one of the fastest growth rates in the world of about, we're expecting this year 6.5%. We've been growing on average 7% for the past decade. So this is an economy that is on the move. And unfortunately for us, in a corner of our country, the Northeast, we have the challenges of the Boko Haram, which we're going to talk about. But I wanted you to get an impression of this country, which is full of dynamism, full of entrepreneurs, both men and women, an exciting country, at times chaotic, at times orderly, but always exciting. And of course, Nigeria faces challenges like many other countries do. And I think the issue is, how are we, with partnerships to support us collectively, facing these challenges? And I think one of the challenges we're going to talk about today is that of Boko Haram, is that of the girls' access to education and the challenges posed by the terrorist organization. But more importantly is perhaps how can we all, in partnership, address these issues. Now, there's no one issue, no one problem that keeps the president of Nigeria, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, awake at night than the issue of the girls and how to get them back, and how to create an environment that they can return to that offers them better safety and access to education than they did before. One of the big challenges we face in a fast-growing economy, in fact, there are two challenges, is how to make sure that our growth delivers more for those at the bottom end of the ladder, where we've not been doing so well in that particular regard, and how to create jobs. They're all part and parcel of the same thing. We need to create more jobs so that our young people can get to work, and we need to include those who are not benefiting as much. We certainly do not want a growth that continues to happen with more inequality. That's not what it's about. It has to be a growth that delivers for the majority of the people. And that's the context within which we also look at education and how do we deploy our resources to deliver better for our girls and for our children in general. So it's wonderful to have this opportunity created by Melanne and President DeGioia for us to talk about what we're doing. But first, let me touch on a few issues. The girls that were abducted from Borno State, from their school in Chibok, as you know, everybody talks about it. It touched the world. This year alone, in addition to the abduction, Boko Haram has murdered over 170 teachers in Borno State, and an estimated 300 educational facilities have been destroyed in the three most affected states in this corner of Nigeria, Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, including 80 primary schools in Borno State alone. Prior to this, safety of children in school over a long history was something that we never really thought about in our country, or never really posed a challenge. But safety and access to safe education became central when this challenge and this destructive force was thrown at us, particularly the big incident that happened on April 14, 2014, of the abduction of our girls. Now, what do we know? I know many of you want an update, what's happening with the girls. So let me address that. We know that a group of the girls have been seen somewhere. But extricating these girls is not a simple matter. If you approach it with too much force, you might end up harming the girls. But that doesn't mean paralysis. So the government is pursuing several approaches to try and work on the girls, and always has been. But we did not communicate properly to the world and to the country what it was we were trying to do. The dilemma that was being faced by the president in terms of how to go about this, paramount to him is the safety of these girls. And it was to that effect that he met with all the Chibok parents, as well as 57 of the girls who escaped, and I was in that meeting. The parents have hope because they know that their daughters are somewhere, and we want to keep that hope alive. So this matter has to be approached in a way that handles this dilemma properly. The paramount objective is to get the girls out safely. And whether it's dialogue, whether it's through military or counterinsurgency action, whether it's through other means, certainly this is a path that is being explored every day. And I just wanted you to know that no one is folding their hands day after day. The thought uppermost in our minds is the safety of these girls and how to get them back. It's every parent's nightmare that your child goes to school and does not return. To find that your daughter has been kidnapped and abducted from the safety of their classroom and taken to a place where you're not sure is traumatizing. As the mother of a daughter, my oldest child is a daughter, I can't even begin to imagine what it feels like. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the father of 2 daughters, finds this continuous trauma on how to make sure that these girls, who are all our daughters, they are not just the daughters of Chibok, but the daughters of Nigeria, that their safe return is ensured to their grieving families and the nation. I want to take a moment to thank all of you for the outpouring of support for these girls at the time of their need, and to the goodwill that has been shown to Nigeria and to these girls at this time, in spite of the criticisms, because we were not able to articulate properly what it was that was being done and the dilemma that was being faced. The world got the impression that nothing was being done, very far from the truth. But people will not know unless you're able to tell them what is it exactly you're facing as a dilemma, and to handle it in a balanced fashion. So we thank you. We want you to know that we are continuing to work, and we will not relent until these girls are brought back to their families in safety. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, This abduction saga has further complicated the challenges we face in our education system, which some of them have been mentioned. These challenges have been existing prior to the issue of the safety and security. And the safety and security issue just compounds and makes clearer the progress that we need to make to provide a safe and productive learning environment for both our children and our teachers. The progress of a nation, as John F. Kennedy once said, he said, quote, "Our progress as a nation can be no swifter than our progress in education." And I believe this. In fact, the relationship between the standard of living and school education in Nigeria is quite strong. Dr. Shah referred to some research, but research by our people and by the World Bank shows that each additional year of education in Nigerian schools is associated with a 9% increase in wage income. Employees with primary education in incorporated private sector organizations are estimated to earn 16 to 20% more than those with no education. And those with secondary education earn 25 and 35% more than those with no education. So no matter how well our economy does on aggregate, it is clear that we will fail to reduce the problems of inequality and the issue we will fail to tackle inclusion if we do not fix the challenges that we face in providing access to safe and quality education for our children, and particularly for our girls. Let me just name a few of the challenges that we face, for which we have made some progress, but the progress is slow, and we need to hasten that. And that is what the president of the country is focused on now. How do we do better to hasten progress? While we're doing surveys to nail down the number of out-of-school children, the number we have now is 10.5 million children out of school, and that's not acceptable. It's not even acceptable to have 5 children out of school when they could be in school. We have improved primary school attendance rates by 7% from 1990 to 2003. That improvement is too slow. Recently, from 2003 till now, we've accelerated, and recent data from our National Bureau of Statistics shows that attendance rates have risen from about 61% in 2003 to 71% in 2012, which is still way below where we ought to be. On completion rates for primary education, the indicator that is used to monitor progress by the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, we've increased from 82% in 2004 to about 88% now, which is 12% less than where we ought to be. And we are pushing to make sure that we accelerate and meet this goal, where we've done relatively better than others. Now, according to our statistics, the majority of our out-of-school children are concentrated in the north of our country, northern Nigeria, and particularly in the northeast, where the Boko Haram activity is focused. While only about half of school-age children in the north are currently attending school, the rates for children in the south of the country are 90%. So in other words, children in the north are less likely to attend school than those in the south. But we have to say that even when you look within the north, there's differentiation. Certain states are doing better than others. For example, primary school net attendance rates in Kano and Kaduna states in the northwest are at 64 and 59% respectively. And they are much higher than those in the northeast, which are northeast states of Borno and Yobe, which are about 36 and 17% respectively. So the north-south divide is pronounced, and is even more so when you look at pre-primary enrollment rates. Gender disparities also abound, as about 31% of our girls are out of school, compared to 26% of our boys. In all, 52% of the total out-of-school children are girls. But further analysis by our research and by the World Bank and UNICEF reveals that gender disparities are almost exclusively concentrated in the north of the country compared to the south. We have 34% of girls out of school in the rural north compared to 25% of boys, whereas in the south, 4% of girls only and 3% of boys are out of school in the south. So you can see that there's a clear regional divide that we have to tackle. This sharp divide between the north and south has historical antecedents, which as a country over our years we've not managed to overcome. Essentially, the legacy of colonial rule, which concentrated Western-type education on the south of the country, supported by missionaries, whilst maintaining religious-based or Quranic education in the north, has yet to be overcome all these years. Much of the gender bias can also be traced to culture and religion. Early marriage, combined with parental preferences to educate boys, is a key factor promoting gender disparity in the north. Second, the quality of our education system and associated learning outcomes needs to be improved. Studies have shown that about 44% of students who have completed 6th grade are not able to read a complete sentence in English or their preferred local language, as Dr. Shah alluded to. And in the north, more than 2/3 of students who have completed 6th grade have this problem. I've talked about the dropout rates and the completion rates, which, although improving, are still a big problem, particularly in the north of the country. The dearth of qualified teachers is a major issue affecting the quality of our education system. The teaching profession is no longer held in the high esteem it was when I was in school, a clear departure from our early school days. It is clear that we need to reward, recognize, honor, and provide dignity to our teachers and motivate them, even through non-monetary as well as monetary instruments, if we are to improve the quality of teacher training. We also know that poverty, another factor, prevents children from attending school in spite of free basic education, and I want to stress that, free basic education. But those with poor nutrition and with poverty have a negative relationship to schooling outcomes. Our demographic and health survey, which collects information from a large sample of households in Nigeria, shows that there are extremely large within-country inequalities in school completion. While 95% of children from the richer households completed 6th grade in 2008, only 31% from the poorest quintile has done the same. So clearly, well-being, welfare, and income of households affects the rate at which their children attend school. And that is why tackling inequality in the context of our growth is essential for us to do it as well. Other problems are inadequate school infrastructure, a lack of teaching materials. You know, the interesting thing in this regard is when we were talking to some of the girls who are in Maiduguri, which is the capital city of Borno, the state from which the Chibok girls were taken, as to what do they regard as safety? What is it they would like to see if we are to enhance the safety and security of their schools? Infrastructure came up loud and clear. In terms of what? Electricity. They want well-lit schools round the clock, because many of these children and the girls are in boarding schools. And in fact, when the abduction occurred, there was no electricity in the school, so the girls could not see who were the people who had come. These people came in Nigerian army uniform, and they said to the girls that they were soldiers who had come to save them from Boko Haram, but they were Boko Haram in Nigerian army uniform. So that is why the girls followed them in large numbers and they could not see. So getting lighting in these schools and proper sanitation facilities within easy reach are part of what we have to solve in the infrastructure of our schools. Sorting out some of the other policy and constitutional problems in terms of the administration of education is also another area in which we need to work. So in the context of these problems, what has the president done? He's leading the charge in terms of defining an approach for us to try to improve the safety, access, and quality of education for our children. A lot of groundwork has been done, and we are putting forward a national action plan on education based on all this work that has been done by the Federal Ministry of Education and by our states, who, by the way, the states in Nigeria, 36 of them, and the Federal Capital Territory, are responsible for primary and secondary education, and the federal level for tertiary. But the federal level comes in sometimes to support particularly primary and secondary education through some of its own facilities and through matching grants, trying to knit the nation together to try and deliver a better quality. And this will continue. We have to put forward a national action plan on education, and this is what we're doing based on all this work. This will involve a rethink on the governance framework for basic education, the promotion of accountability, including seeing how we could devolve more budgetary control to the school level, where parents, communities, and teachers can hold those delivering education more accountable. The action plan will focus on bridging the gap in geographical zones. Now that we have all the data and we know where the problem lies in terms of geography, in terms of poverty, in terms of incomes of households, we need to focus with a laser beam on this. In fact, the administration has already started with providing more schools in order to improve access. 125 what we call our emergency schools, schools for children who are out of school and begging on the streets, have been built in the north in order to provide access to these schools. And many of them are boarding schools to provide them a safe and good learning environment. We've also constructed and are constructing special girls' schools in 13 states of the Federation, again to improve access and quality to our girls. Some partners have been supporting us to try different approaches to bring particularly girls into school. For example, in Kano State, together with the World Bank and the DFID, the Department for International Development of the UK, we've been experimenting with conditional cash transfers, where cash transfers are given to parents to encourage them to send their girls to school. And results are the impact of this is positive. We've seen a 10% increase in enrollment with the girls. Through our new national identity card system, which is being piloted at the moment, we hope to give individuals and families an identity that will enable, coupled with a partnership we have with MasterCard. I wish I could show you my card. We have this national ID card we've started issuing. There are 3,000 of them now, and we have one that will enable us to better target families, individuals, to be able to provide these cash transfers and other types of programs that can enable us and encourage parents to send their children to school. Improving teacher training, the quality of basic education, all of these are part and parcel of this plan. But let me turn quickly in the time left to the issue of safety and security, where we have several approaches. But one particular one that I'm co-leading with Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister of the UK, is an effort that has been put forward by both government and the private sector in Nigeria called the Safe Schools Initiative to complement the national movement and the national examples that we're trying to put to improve education. We have the Safe Schools Initiative, which is targeted particularly at enhancing safety in our schools, but particularly for our girls. It's a public-private partnership between the private sector, the international community, and the Nigerian government. Every child is precious, and every child is unique. And it's because of this precious commodity we have, this precious trust that has been given to government, that we've been looked for initiatives like the Safe Schools to see what more we can do to enhance the ability of our children to feel safe and our parents to allow their children to go to school. This initiative is designed as a nationwide intervention, but we're prioritizing schools in the northeastern states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, where we have the most intensive actions of the Boko Haram, and where I read you the statistics of what damage has already been done. The private sector pledged $10 million to a fund, and the government immediately matched it with another $10 million to try to kickstart this initiative, which I'll spell out in a moment. We've also had support from the African Development Bank with a $1 million grant, the UK with another £1 million, the German government with 2 million euros, and the Norwegian government with $1.5 million to support this. What is our aim? Our aim is to look at a series of interventions that can upgrade the safety and security of our schools. Ranging from physical measures, such as securing the school, where we don't want to build them into fortresses, but sometimes to demarcate them with a wall to give them some kind of space where the children can play and feel safe. This is one of the initiatives that we're pursuing, because many of our schools are plunked in the middle of a community and are easily accessible to anyone walking by. So placing a boundary around them, again, without turning them into fortresses, is one of the things we are looking at physically. We're looking at community policing and involvement systems, involving the communities around the school much more in the safety and security of these schools. We're looking at, as I said, perimeter fencing. We are looking at constructing the schools with fire retardant materials. Why is this? Some of the schools in which children were harmed or bombed by Boko Haram, were up in flames because they were constructed of materials that easily burn. So how do we now reconstruct these schools and build new ones with the types of materials that would be much safer? We're looking at school guards. We're looking at things as simple as I said before, as lighting, solar lighting. In our communications and consultation with children and with girls, as I mentioned before, looking at a sustainable means of light, and we have plenty of sunlight in this place, so putting in solar panels round the clock, changing the location of bathroom facilities makes these girls, this is what they said, makes them feel safer. In our primary schools, making sure that good bathroom facilities are available so children do not have to wander out to look for a place, facilities to use. These are some of the simple things, along with modern technology, early warning systems in the school, bells and alarms that children can place, and so on and so forth. These are some of the simple techniques we are looking at to upgrade the safety and security of our schools. Housing teachers better in safe areas. This is another thing, because it's not just the children, but the teachers that have to be made to feel safer, more valued. So we also have to look after their interests. Another initiative within the safe schools that we're looking at is simply saying to parents and children in these areas, if you feel safer with your child transferred to another school within the country, particularly those at secondary level where we tend to go to boarding schools, the government will support, and the president is very firm on this, sending the children to other boarding schools on full scholarship. To that effect, the parents of 800 children within these communities have registered that they would like to have their son or their daughter, particularly the daughters, transferred to another school in another state within the country. Most of them have chosen neighboring northern states that are safe. And we've matched these children with schools. So they've chosen that, and their children will be sent there on full scholarship paid for by the government. But for those who do not choose to have their children moved, all these initiatives that we've talked about will be in place in order to enable them feel safer. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must never, never make schools the instrument of war, nor battlefields for terror. And we feel dismayed that at this time in our life, we have come to a situation where schools, where girls' education have been made into instruments of war. We must not allow this to happen. We must do everything possible, working with the international community, working with the private sector, and working with good people like yourselves to ensure that our children are able to learn in a safe environment. You all have experienced what it means, as Dr. Shah said, to see terror in schools here, where people have done school shootings. You can imagine what this might mean on a broad scale when a child goes to school and does not feel safe. We are determined as a government that we tackle this situation head on and we deploy the resources of this country, the fast growth, and what we harness from that growth to change the story about education and education for our girls in the country. I invite you to join us in whichever way you feel possible with your moral support for those of you who can give it, those of you who want to contribute in one way or the other. We've got the means and instruments to do that. We've got a fund that we've opened for safe schools. I mentioned how other countries and how the private sector is contributing. But even just for young students, just having your energy, your support, for not only for our girls, but all of our children, knowing that elsewhere in the world, there are people who really care for their well-being and for their education, is something that is enlightening for all of us. I want to thank you for listening, and I look forward to further interaction with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Minister Ngozi. I think we're very fortunate. Her government is fortunate, but the world is fortunate to have her in the position that she's in. She has agreed to take some of the questions, particularly from the students, and I'm sure that you do have questions, so I hope there are 2 microphones set up, that you will come up and ask her about the situation that she discussed today, or the economy in her country, or Africa more broadly, or women's political participation, whatever's on your mind. And maybe while they're coming up, we can talk about why you've placed such a premium as the minister of the largest economy, the minister of finance in the largest economy on your continent. You have said it cannot grow in the inclusive way that you discussed without the participation of women, and you've put a premium on adolescent girls as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Melanne, you know, there's so much research now that shows that the contribution of girls and women is essential for the growth of any economy. So it's something that used to be debated, but with the wonderful research that has been done by many institutions, including my former institution, the World Bank, shows incontrovertibly that if you want to have sustainable growth and development in your country, you have to empower girls and women. All the statistics, women spend more. If you empower them and they earn more, they spend more on their children, on their household. They contribute substantially to the growth of the economy. They are the SMEs, they're leading. We have 17 million small and medium enterprises in my country, and the bulk of them are run by women. If you do not empower them economically, they are not going to grow. There's research also showing that women worldwide form the 3rd emerging market with a power of $18 billion in consumption. And that's the same at country level. If you don't pay attention to the economic well-being of girls and women, you're missing out. So it's not just an issue of human rights or equal justice. We have that too. But I'm saying, as someone who is an economist, that it's been proven that you really miss sustainable growth if you don't invest in girls and women.
Thank you. Now, we seem to have quite a lineup here. So I think what we'll do is take 2 questions at a time, if that's okay with you.
okay.
One from this side and one from that side. We'll go back and forth. Tell us quickly who you are and what school you're in, and we'll begin. Let's start here.
Good morning, Dr. Ngozi, and thank you for coming here to talk on some of these issues within Nigeria. My name is Adessa, and I'm a sophomore in the SFS. I wanted to ask you a question regarding the economy of Nigeria. There are markets or industries within Nigeria which are dominated by a very small elite group of figures. So one example is the cement industry. A lot of people know that it's largely dominated by Dangote. And I wanted to ask how Nigeria can create a more evenly distributed spread of wealth when there are a lot of markets that are dominated by a small group of people, or where the wealth is largely concentrated in specific areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll take one here.
Hi, thank you for coming to speak with us. My name is Catherine Zuck. I work with the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace, and World Affairs. So my question is more about the types of schools that you're working with. Are you working primarily on the schools that provide basic and free education? Are you working with private schools as well? Are you working at all with religious schools and religious education?
Well, thank you very much for those very good questions. I think, let me first of all say something about Georgetown. I have a soft spot for Georgetown, so I'm really looking forward to this interaction. My brother got his MBA from here, and he likes the school so much that his consulting firm is called Georgetown Consulting.
Based in Nigeria, right?
You can look it based in Nigeria. Okay. The markets, you are absolutely right. We are struggling with an issue of monopoly and oligopolies in certain sectors. And, you know, we first concentrated on the fact that some things that we can produce in our country, we're importing. And it didn't make any sense. Why would a country with such a large population be importing cement? Those who are, you may not be old enough, but some of us who are older, remember the cement saga of the 1970s, when this country had shiploads of cement, and some of them had sand coming in, you know, a lot of fraud to deliver this to the country. So there was a lot of focus on certain basic commodities being produced. That resulted in some, and it's worked, by the way. You know, we are now producing 24.8 million metric tons of cement. We only use about 19. So we've actually started to export to neighboring countries. But in doing that, issues of this concentration of ownership have come up. And the only way to do that is with good regulation and a good antitrust law. And that had been lacking. You know, there's now one before the National Assembly to be promulgated into law. And that will help enable us to now try and regulate these industries. So we're on the way to doing that. On the issue of the types of schools, we are working mainly with public schools, you know, but we're also talking, of course, we'll be in contact with private schools because they also could use some of these upgrades. But generally, the private schools tend to be in much better shape than the public schools. So we are concentrating, and we are not leaving religious schools aside. So it will be public schools, including religious schools, that we look at.
Next.
Hi, Minister Ngozi Kedu. My name is Courtney, and I'm a sophomore in the SFS. And my question is, recognizing the areas that countries have like setbacks and flaws in their systems, and brainstorming ideas as to how they're going to remedy those issues is great, but what are some of the actual things that the government of Nigeria is going to implement to follow through with these ideas that you were talking to us about? I know they have a history with not necessarily following through with some of the things that, some of the areas that they tried to reprimand in regards to discrimination, the CEDAW, yeah. So that's my question.
Hello, my name is Bethan, and I'm a sophomore in the SFS. My question is, how do you plan, or how do you see Nigeria establishing itself as a leader or a role model for other African nations in regards to establishing strong educational initiatives and security for girls?
Okay. Thank you very much for the questions. Yes, on the issue of implementation of actions to deal with the problems we have, we've not always been good at it. Like many countries, you know, policymakers or politicians may pronounce on something and then nothing happens. And that is what takes away trust. You know, so if you see that the trust between government and people is low in the country, because over time, government has not always implemented what it promised. And that has to change and continue changing. It will not happen overnight. But I think what the present government has tried to do under the leadership of the president, and he has been adamant about this. You know, by the way, the country is, I don't know whether it's its large size, whatever. The perception and the publicity and the write-up about the country is often adverse. And that has not given a chance for people outside or even inside to know what is actually being done, the good things that are being implemented. So I'll mention one or two. Why is this? The reason is, first of all, in our own country, the government does not control any newspaper. There's no government, you know, it's a free press. And many of them are also owned by others who are not necessarily pro-government. That's fine. The government owns one TV station and one radio station. So you often get a lot of adverse press, and we have not been able to bring out very strongly our own story of the things that are happening. So here are 2 or 3 examples. We recognize that inequality is growing. Nigeria's Gini coefficient is now about 0.48. That's the measure of inequality. The closer to 1, the more unequal the country is. I think for the US is about 0.32 or something like in that neighborhood. China is about 0.42. South Africa is 0.63. Brazil is 0.55. So Nigeria is by no means the most unequal society, but we certainly don't want to go in the wrong direction. We recognize that creating jobs and putting a safety net for those who can't access jobs are 2 key ways of solving this problem. How are we doing it? Creating jobs. We need to create 1.8 million jobs each year. We just determined that. We are creating 1.2 now. And we have 5 million people stacked up over the years who are not employed. We are focusing on agriculture. This president has driven agriculture. The World Bank has shown that it's 3 times more effective in reducing poverty than any other sector. And we have the potential. But we spent a lot of time importing food, certain items. So now, instead of importing rice from Thailand, we have shown we can grow our own rice, and in doing that, and process it. We've created thousands of jobs for young people. We produced 1.1 million metric tons of dry season paddy last year, and 1.6 million tons. We've never done it before. That has created jobs all along as we polish the rice, distribute, and sell it. That's just one example, and we will continue. The same with cassava, and private sector companies have become interested. Cargill has come in to work with us on cassava, and several other. Unilever has just put 150 million euros. Housing. In this country, housing starts and so on are monitored what? On a monthly basis. The Case-Shiller Index is quoted every day. In my country, we've never seen housing. We've never used it as a driver of economic growth. For the first time, we've launched a revolution by creating the Nigeria Mortgage Refinance Corporation, which is going to pump in liquidity to create more mortgages for people, young people in the country to purchase housing. And that will drive a series of jobs for plumbers, carpenters, painters, interior decorators, architects, you name it, builders. So and it's happening now. Just before I came, I know because I'm leading the charge, so I can tell you it's happening. Before we came, we just advertised as a launch pad for 10,000 young people to apply for mortgages for housing below 200,000 and below. We got 66,000 applications on the website within days. and those are being processed. And Cantor Fitzgerald of this country has found what we're doing so fascinating. We just held a meeting with them. They want to join us on that. So I won't bore you, but one last interesting one is the creative industries. Movies. Nigeria has the 3rd largest movie industry in the world called Nollywood.
Bollywood, now Nollywood.
You know, we have Hollywood, Bollywood, and Nollywood. And you know, I never used to watch the movies of Nollywood. But what happened? You know, I went to 2 places. I was in Uganda for a meeting of finance ministers, and somebody ran after me down the corridor of the hotel I was in. I think it was the Sheraton. And they said, wait, because I was dressed like this. Are you from Nigeria? And I said, yes. She said, I love your movies. So I didn't dare say that I had not really watched. So I ran back. When I got back home, I decided to watch 1 or 2 of these movies. And the rest is history, you know?
Now you're addicted.
No, I'm not. But I don't have time. But what I'm trying to say is this industry has created 200,000 direct jobs, 1 million indirect jobs. It's worth $250 million in value and gives us a chance. The young people are the ones being employed there. And government did not create this, by the way. It was all private sector. So we don't want to interfere and ruin it. So we're sort of behind saying, what do you guys need? And they told us they need capacity building and they need help with intellectual property rights. And so we're trying to work with this industry with a little fund. So sorry to take time, but this is to show you that what you said about implementation, we are not just talking. We are actually doing things that will change the perspective. Now, Nigeria is a leader of a role model for other countries. You're absolutely right. We bear a responsibility, always have borne it as the largest country on the continent, and now the largest economy. We are 170 million people. And we're on track by 2050 to be the 4th largest economy in the world, with a reservoir of young people who can really drive the economy if we get it right. So it's incumbent on us to show that leadership role. Making Nigeria work is not just about Nigeria. You know, we are now 76% of West Africa's GDP and about 26% of Africa's. So we're trying to see how we can do things right. But we have to communicate better, because when I look from outside, it's as if nothing right is happening in this country. Are you all aware of what we did on Ebola? Thank you. Well, I'm very happy that you at least heard something, because I'm very proud of our president and our Minister of Health and the team and the doctors and nurses who sacrificed. We dealt with this thing with precision, with dedication, with focus. And we had 19 cases, 7 died, the rest recovered because of treatment. And there's 0 cases in Nigeria today. So please go out and at least be an ambassador for us on some of the things we are doing right. And we take the point. We have to be a role model. I have to move fast, but...
Well, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do many more. Maybe if we get 2 more quick questions and 2 very quick answers.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll take one from this side and be very quick.
Maybe 2 more from each side. Okay.
Well, how about one more, I think, as I'm looking at the clock.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Carly Roche. My colleagues work with the American University of Nigeria and the AUN Foundation, which has recently taken in 15 of the escaped girls and is raising funds to help educate the other escaped women as they try to bring them back safely, as you had mentioned. With the scale of these issues in providing education to these girls being so large and being myriad with the different poverty aspects and other social economic factors, how long are you thinking it's going to take to try making a dent in this problem?
Okay.
Dr. Minister, thank you so much for coming today. My name is Rachel Firestone, and I'm a graduate student in the Masters of Science in Foreign Service program. In your talk, you mentioned the difference between the South and the North of the country, and you also talked about partnerships happening with the private sector. I wanted to know if there are also other ways that the government has been working to engage the South on its efforts in the North and Northeast.
To engage the South in the Northeast.
States or constituents anyway?
This is it.
Okay. Well, thanks to the AUN for what it's doing, and anyone who can help and any organization is welcome. This is not a problem that will be solved overnight. I would be lying to you if I said so. This is a problem that has been long in the making and will take a period of time to solve. But the issue is we can't afford to wait. We've started and we need to push. And I think that the impact of what you see, just look at the CCT program, the cash transfers, is already yielding results. So I believe that if the concerted push the president is talking about will begin to yield, and once people see success and see better schools, this will take off. After all, for the MDGs, we made some progress. We haven't hit the target. But I think that a concerted push to make our schools safer and make our parents feel more comfortable within the next 5 years or so, I think we begin to see dramatic differences in the numbers we are talking about. On engaging other states with the North, let me just say that Nigeria is a truly decentralized country. People may not recognize it, but our states, we have 36 states and a federal capital territory, and they have true power in the Constitution. They get almost 50% of the resources of the country. And the federal government is not allowed to really interfere with the way they spend their money. So you have to, perforce, work with the states to deliver. And, there's varied performance. Some states are doing well. Some are doing less well. But the idea is that we have the National Economic Council, where states and federal government we come together to try and discuss issues. And this problem of dealing with the girls' education, with education in general, cannot be solved by the federal government alone. The states are vitally important, and that provides a forum where we discuss approaches of how to do it.
Thank you so much, Minister Ngozi. I mean, you can see why she has the reputation she has around the world. We've come together to learn more, but we've also come together to make commitments. You heard Administrator Shah make a commitment for Northeast Nigeria and the issue that we're discussing. And we've had meetings with the private sector. Many are here, and hopefully much is going to come out of that in terms of future support. But I want to make one other announcement of a commitment, and that's the leading strategy and management consulting group, Accenture, has committed to conducting a landscape analysis of investments by the private sector currently going on in Nigeria, focused on this area of shared value. The study is going to be undertaken in conjunction with the Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace, and Security, and in cooperation with the private sector companies. And it will document and assess existing initiatives in order to identify potential synergies that can be leveraged to address these critical issues, and then to see where the gaps are so that hopefully we can work at filling those gaps. So I want to thank Accenture, who's here today, for that commitment. This is a space for everybody, including the students, as the minister said. Today's paper carried an article about a student who's working, Nigerian student athlete, works to inspire girls at home. And I think this is what we need. So that join with each other, come up with creative ideas. Many of you spend your summers working on projects in Nigeria. This is for all of us. That's what President DeGioia intended in calling us together. And I hope, Minister, you come out of this feeling all of the support that you have, both psychological and hopefully tangible.
Thank you. I'm hoping the students will have brilliant ideas on crowdsourcing. One of our private sector supporters from Accenture mentioned that. And, creative ways in which you feel you can support the girls. And there are channels where you can send your support and still have accountability and transparency
in the way that any resources are used, or any creative ways, and even moral support, like I said. So thank you all. I do feel it. Melanne, I have to thank you most sincerely,
all of us.
you know, for doing this, and for such an enthusiastic crowd. So many of you have stayed behind, even at this hour.
Some of them are probably cutting classes. That's where the others were going. Anyway, the minister now has some press interviews she has to do, so there's no rest for the weary. But thank you all for being a part of this, and this is just the beginning.